Hi, it's Danielle with Kepperling Preservation Services with you today to do a You've Got Questions, We've Got Answers segment instead of the podcast. And I have a multi-piece question from Allison from the Window Woman of New England, and she did one of our first podcasts. So if you haven't heard that, be sure to go back and listen. I'm holding my phone because I couldn't get the go live button to work on my laptop. So we'll see how well this goes. If I'm looking down and trying to maneuver everything, it's because I'm holding my phone with one hand. Also, some of the topics that we're covering today will be covered in our practical preservation event on June 8th. If you want more information on that, you can go to bit.ly at practical preservation, and there's no .com or anything at the end of that. It's just, and I had it here. It's, oh no, it's BITLY at practical preservation, and that will get you to the ticket page. So anyway, so Allison's email to me was, she was saying, it seems that building codes and energy incentives go almost out of their way to penalize restoration. For example, I've been working with a local representative from Mass Save and Energy Conservation Program. They offer terrific 5-year 0% interest loan for people who improve efficiency of their home. Of course, it covers new windows, and when I asked if it covered storm windows, I got a blank stare. So that's one piece, the energy efficiency piece. And I'll go back and talk about each piece individually. Another example she cited was, I have a client who wants to rent out his house, so he had to have a lead inspection. The inspector found lead on the windowsill, so his recommendation was to replace the windows. And then Allison writes in all capitals, really. Our town adopted an energy stretch code for new buildings or renovations. Luckily, our building inspector was amenable to us moving original 1850s windows from the original house to the addition and installing storm windows over them. We have to have the addition HERS rated at the end, which will allow us to meet code, but most building inspectors don't even know that's an option or refuse to believe that restored windows can meet code, so they just flat out disallow them. So her question was, what is needed to ensure that the historic preservation can play nice with the desire for increased energy efficiency? So there's a couple issues at play there. The first that I see is the incentives for replacement windows. Some of that has to do with the fact that the window manufacturers are lobbying to get those incentives put in place. I know during the recession in 2008, when they were doing a lot of energy incentives and retrogrades that the federal government was offering, they did offer incentives for storm windows and storm doors. And I believe that had something to do with also the Obama administration had brought some energy experts in, some auditors, and I know Tamison from Pure Energy Coach was involved with that, and I know that she, believes in the science rather than the product, so that would explain why they were offering that, because if you understand the way a building works and you understand the stack effect, the most efficient way to increase your energy efficiency is not necessarily to replace the windows. So that's a lobbying, having the right people in place that can explain, the actual science rather than just, what is, the common beliefs about windows and their, the older windows being energy inefficient. The lead inspection is a HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. That's a HUD requirement. I remember I was probably still in college. My parents and Jonathan was working for them at the time. He had just started. Had done a few HUD projects for the city of Lancaster, and that was always like the end, testing for the lead to make sure that that the house was lead free. Most of the times they were just encouraging encapsulation, which is just pretty much painting over the lead, and that's very fine. It's a lot less disruptive to some of the other options, such as replacing the trim. I'm not sure how replacing the windows would solve that problem, because even with a modern, like a new house replacement window, it doesn't come with an interior sill. So I don't think that really would solve the problem that they were facing. But you can always strip the paint using good lead practices, or you can definitely encapsulate. So I think that was probably just a knee-jerk reaction to old windows, and why don't you just replace them anyway. The stretch energy code. So the reason that was, and it's good that there was a building inspector that was amenable to allowing them to move the original windows to the addition, and then installing storm windows over them. The reason that is not covered. So in an older building, you can invoke the existing building code. It's the IEBC, and 42 states have adopted it. And that allows for a historic building to not have to meet the modern code. And historic means, and I'll have to double check, but it's any building that's on the National Register, any building within a historic district. And I'm trying to think if there's any other criteria. I think those are the two primary criteria, that they have to be recognized as a historic building. But most towns that have historic districts, that would cover those houses, and then the houses that are outside of that would be on the National Register. If they've been on the National Register, you don't have to make any changes if you're going under the existing building code to some of the things that you would have to upgrade, such as the stairwells, the door swings, things like that they're now required in a modern building. But because the example that Allison cited was an addition, that means that it's not exempted under the existing building code. So anytime you do a change of occupancy, so we've encountered this converting a barn into a house, or changing the way the building works. So, like, let's say it was always a single family house, and now you're making a bed and breakfast. That would be a change in usage. Any change in occupancy, any or change in usage, any additions. I'm trying to think what other things are exempted. Anything that would be new or a change in usage is not allowed. Then you have to meet the modern code. Now you can get a building inspector that's a little bit that will give you some leeway, like they won't make you take out a grand staircase, even though that doesn't meet the modern code usually. But that is dependent on who you're talking to. So I can see why they were wanting you to meet the energy efficiency in the addition. But if you understand that the existing building code, you wouldn't have to meet the energy guidelines if you were just restoring a house or just preserving the windows. So that being said, the majority of, except for the incentives, like the things that come from the federal government, and I'm thinking there are incentives too for preservation, like for a commercial building, you can do the tax credits, and there's some of the states have tax credits that are even for residential. So that's something that you can look into, but the other thing that I think that we need to remember is most preservation guidance and guidelines are coming from the local level. So it's the municipality is writing those. So if you feel like they need to incentivize and make some changes to the program, I think the best thing that we can do is to get involved at the local level, because each municipality is responsible for administering their own program, and so that that does allow for people to make changes, make suggestions, so that the default is not replacement or the assumption that those things will not be as energy efficient or unable to be used to make it convenient for our modern and safe, because that's really what the building code is for, to make sure that the buildings are safe for the occupants. I thank you, Allison, for sending in your question, and I'll talk to you soon.